Hello everyone, my name is Pedro Santos and I'm here today to review a book called Everybody Lies. It's important to say I don't completely agree with everything that is said on the book, but I think it's important to go through the main points the author makes and kind of talk about some of the case studies he uses to prove his points. And the author defines four central virtues to big data. The first one being the fact that it's a digital truth serum. So that means it supplies honest data about matters that people normally lie about in traditional surveys, such as racist attitudes or their sexual lives. The second virtue is the ability of running large-scale randomized control experiments, which in the past were extremely expensive and too time-consuming. And they also enable to uncover new relationships, patterns, and correlations and that were in the past were simply not possible with smaller amounts of data. The third virtue is the quality of the amount of data supplied, which enables researchers to zoom in smaller subsets of the population and really track their behavior exactly. The last virtue is the fact that big data is supplying and is going to keep supplying new types of data that in the past were not possible to uncover. Towards the middle of the book, the author states too that the next influential social scientist will be data scientists. So the next Freud will be a data scientist, the next Karl Marx will be a data scientist. And I think this is highly unlikely, and I think big data and data analytics will complement the jobs that the social scientists already do with their more traditional research methods. But I don't think big data will substitute those methods. I think will complement because a big part of the social scientist's job is still their ability to use the intuition and look at people's thought patterns and behaviors and observe them and just draw conclusions from them or from the data. So I don't think it will substitute. And towards the end of the book, the author talks about some of the issues that normally researchers run into when doing statistical studies. And one of them is the curse of dimensionality. And this happens when researchers try to measure such large-scale phenomena with so many variables, some of them unknown to the human mind, and some of them are simply not accounted for or controlled for. And the researchers end up drawing conclusions and correlations from the data in their research, but many times they are not verifiable, or simply some of the correlations might seem true, but correlation doesn't imply causation. And then towards the end of the book, the author also makes reference to Katie O'Neill's book called Weapons of Math Destruction. And this is to say that data analytics tools have added such a frightening new efficiency and effectiveness to marketing programs or simply to business abilities of tracking consumer behavior that this is raising the possibility of predatory advertising. And many times that analytics tools are designed with the best intentions in mind, but they are many times augmenting the social injustice that already happen in our society. For example, in the finance world with loans, credit cards, mortgages, just simply the ability of business track their consumer behavior and knowing the consumer personally and deciding who deserves to buy and sell their products. Also, the author starts one of his case studies from a false assumption, and that was that it was impossible for Clinton to lose the election against Trump. And I don't think the researcher was the only one to start from this false assumption. The media outlets during the election simply were using traditional data sources where people lied about, and therefore they thought it was unexpected, the result of the election. But I just think the reports made by the media were many times biased towards Clinton and weren't really accounting for the amount of influence Trump had in the voters. And actually, I have an article about it and about the book from The Economist called How to Find Out What People Really Think. And it says Miss Clinton used the finest number crunchers, but their calculations still relied largely on traditional sources, such as voter files and polls. And so this is exactly what I was talking about, and it happened. And actually, Another thing that wasn't really mentioned in the book is the fact how powerful this data analytics and big data is. It's enabling the average user of social media platforms or the smaller business person to really track the consumer behavior and get to know his consumers and really focus on what their needs and wants. And I draw that conclusion from an article called No Lie, Engaging New Books Brings Behavioral Science into the Era of Big Data. And he also kind of touches in some of the points of the book. Also, the final point that the book doesn't make, and I haven't seen the book or articles that really talk about, is the fact that many of these books, fiction and non-fiction, normally focus on the pessimistic aspects of human nature. And that's something I don't think the author focused enough. He really just went for the pessimist side view. Just towards the end, kind of makes some positive statements about it. And I have an article that talks about it, that it's from Time magazine, called Paradise Lost, the mysterious case of the missing utopian novels. And even though this article focuses on the fact that in today's world, many of the novels are wrote about the pessimistic views of human nature, I think it applies to nonfiction too, because I think uh, it's possible to say that many of the best sellers nowadays are normally pessimistic about human nature. And that's something I think data analytics and big data should be used for more often. So I hope you enjoyed my book review. Thank you for your time. And if you don't really want to spend money or read the book, there's a free article in the New York Times from the same author from July 2014 that kind of makes the same points. And so feel free to read it and just comment and tell me what you think.